analysing 5 different teaching styles based off of Mostyn's spectrum of teaching styles. These 5 styles include practical style, reciprocal style, self-check, guided discovery, and convergent discovery. Alright, let's get straight into it. Let's say this Luka Doncic model from the Dallas Mavericks represents the teacher, right? And these 3 hats represent individual students within my classroom. So by now, the teacher would have demonstrated a specific task, and the students would be sent out to practice on their own time while making 9 specific decisions, which I'll talk about later on. The teacher will watch and observe students practicing privately and will step in to offer feedback where they deem so necessary. This feedback can include individual progressions or regressions. It is, however, crucial for this feedback to be solely private to each individual within the classroom. Additionally, students aren't allowed to congregate with each other, as it is a private practice. Within this teaching style, the teacher is solely responsible for the subject matter and logistical decisions to provide feedback for the learners, whilst the role of the learner is to individually and privately practice a memory/reproduction task while making 9 specific decisions. A real-world example of this could be in a tennis lesson where the teacher will get someone to demonstrate the skill and then send students off to individually practice by themselves as they hit on the wall. The teacher will go past every student, observing them and stepping in when feedback is necessary or there should be a progression or a regression for that student. Positives include personalised learning, which students can progress at their own pace, catering to their individual abilities and learning styles. We have focused attention, which is students can give focused attention to refining techniques and addressing personal challenges without the distracting that may arise in a group setting. And finally, skill development. Individual practice allows students to focus on their specific skill development without the distractions of constantly working in a group. This can be particularly beneficial for mastering fundamental movement. Negatives include limited social interaction, so PE often involves developing social skills such as teamwork and cooperation. Individual practice may limit these opportunities for social interaction. And difficulty with misbehaved classes, due to individual practice being the students individually practicing, some students may not be trusted to follow through with the teacher's instructions. Reciprocal style, reproduction style C. So let's jump right back into it. We have our Luka Doncic model, which is a teacher, and we've got our 3 students for this demonstration. So one of them, we'll do this in a basketball setting. So one would be the shooter, one would be the coach/feedback, and the other will be the rebounder. So let's just imagine there's a imaginary ring at the back there. So the role of the shooter is just to get it into the net, and the role of the rebounder is to pass it back to the shooter, and the coach will be the one providing feedback. So the defining characteristics of reciprocal are social interaction, receiving and giving immediate feedback, and the role of the teacher is to make all subject matter criteria and logistical decisions and to provide feedback to the person coaching only. And the role of the learner is to work in partnership relationships. So one learner is the doer who performs the task, while the other learner is the observer who offers immediate and ongoing feedback to the doer. At the end of the practice, the doer and observer will switch roles. Examples of coaching feedback could be so-and-so you need to push through your heels a bit more and elevate into your shot. The teacher will provide all the communication in the pre-impact, and the impact and post-impact is all dictated by the learners.
Peer learning, so reciprocal teaching promotes peer-to-peer learning, allowing students to learn from one another and share their understanding of the topic. Communication skills, so it teaches and encourages students to articulate and explain concepts to their peers and enhance their communication skills. And engagement, it allows more engagement and motivation when participating with your mates in the teaching process and taking the role as the teacher. Negatives include misinformation, so if the student does have the proper guidance and knowledge from the teacher, they may be giving wrong feedback to the doer. And unequal contributions is some students may be sitting out a bit more or observing rather than actually providing good quality feedback.
Self-check, reproduction style, D. So let's jump right back into it. We have our Luka Doncic model, which is a teacher. And here we have our three students. So student 1 will be underarming throwing to the student 2, who has a racket and has to hit a high, deep shot back. And student 3 will just be collecting the balls. Now, instead of our peers giving us feedback, a checklist allows the individual to seek feedback from themselves by looking at the sheet and seeing if their skills are aligning with what the sheet says. This allows the student to develop independence in performing a specific task. The teacher will be going around asking questions focusing on the process of self-check and performance overall, rather than telling them what they're doing good or bad.
Ownership of learning. Self-assessment empowers students to take ownership of their own learning. They become actively involved in evaluating their performance and setting goals for improvement and reflection. Encourages reflective thinking as students analyse their strengths and weaknesses. This reflective process can contribute to deeper learning and understanding of their physical abilities. Lack of external feedback, so relying solely on self-assessment may result in a lack of external feedback from teachers or peers, which can be valuable for a more comprehensive evaluation.
Here we have a brown shoe. Let's say this is the question which the teacher asks the class. And to our right, we have a blue shoe. This is the answer which the teacher wants the class to figure out. When using guided discovery, the teacher has the start point and the end point predetermined. We teachers use a series of questions or prompts to guide the learner along the path to work the answer out for themselves. We teachers guide the discovery that the student actually undertakes. So there might be a question that is asked by the teacher that the student actually starts to work out and has a partial discovery moment, which we like to call a aha moment, that helps them to move towards the final answer, almost like a stepping stone. This will continue with a series of questions and student discoveries along the way, which will all lead towards a predetermined answer. Positives include promoting active learning, so guided discovery can promote active learning, allowing students to engage with the material hands-on, thus enhancing their retention of concepts related to physical activity. Critical thinking, students are encouraged to think critically and problem solve as they discover information on their own. This could lead to a deeper understanding of the subject matter. And autonomy, guided discovery empowers students to take control of their own learning process. This can enhance their sense of autonomy and thus give them motivation to persevere. Negatives include lack of direction, so some students may struggle without clear direction from the teacher, and without sufficient guidance they may be confused or frustrated, thus hindering their learning experiences. Unequal learning experiences, so some students may play a specific sport out of school, so they'll have more knowledge than other students and thus figure out the answer quicker than them, which may be a bit unfair to other students. Convergent discovery, production style G. Convergent discovery is very similar to guided discovery in regards to both having a predetermined start and endpoint. However, convergent discovery is the idea that the pathways students take to get to that final answer can be very different. So the students can lead themselves off in different ways determined by how they are understanding that problem. So I have some different hats here which represent the different pathways students may take to come to the final answer. So we might have to ask a particular question to student A and they'll go off in this direction. Student B may go off in this direction and student C in this direction. The teacher then takes where the student is at that point and look for individual opportunities to guide them back towards the final answer. Same start and end point, but different context to find the final answer. It is very important for the teacher to wait for the student to figure the answer out and not butt in, as this is important for this spectrum of teaching for the student to figure it out for themselves. A real world example could be in a basketball PE class when 3 students are trying to perform a fast break and they've got to come up with their own ways of performing it successfully. Student 1 may pass it to the player on the left, or student 2 may pass it to the player on the right, or student 3 may just take it for themselves and then pass it later on. But the final answer wanted is how can we push the floor quickly to have a successful fast break?
Positives include ownership of learning, so convergent discovery gives students a sense of ownership over their learning process. They're actively involved in exploring and discovering solutions, which can enhance motivation and engagement, and also problem solving skills. So students are encouraged to analyse and solve problems within the context of physical activities. This can help develop critical thinking skills as they work towards achieving a predetermined outcome. Negatives include time constraints, so convergent discovery activities may require more time for students to explore and reach the desired outcomes, and with limited class time, it may be challenging to cover all the necessary content, and students may not be able to achieve it in that time frame. And finally, potential loss of KTPs and game-related skills, so students will potentially focus too much on the desired outcome and just lose all their learnt KTPs as they're just thinking of achieving that outcome the quickest way they can.